Gress.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Or if you're new here, welcome to another edition of Kingly Conversations, man. And hey, we got another hot one for you today. But before we get into all of that, Zoe's got some shout outs.
Yeah, I would just like to thank all the listeners, man. We appreciate you. And for those who have had conversations about coming onto the podcast, we made it a whole lot easier for you. So we need to connect and link up and make that happen. So thank you to the listeners worldwide. And let's keep on pushing on this journey. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, today we're going to be talking about why life is about to get harder. So strap in. Let the kings talk about it. All right, good people. Hey, welcome back to another edition of Kingly Conversations, man. And as I am every single week, you know who it is, man. It's Alan.
Yeah, what up? It's your boy Twine, a.k.a. Twine. Ask me about my podcast, man. You know what time it is.
Ask
Let's
about
go.
me. I can ask about me. So listen, obviously, as you all can see and hear, the dynamic duo is in full effect. The Swole Bros, as it
I can't
were.
say that no more. Let's just move on.
I don't know. You say that, but then every time you go to the gym, like, I ain't been to the gym in 6 months. Let me put 500 on this bar. Like, bro, what are we doing right now? What are we doing right now?
Muscle memory, man. What can I say?
Hey, whatever you say, muscle memory, gigantor over there. Get on my nerves every time. I be over here struggling like, man, what is happening? I've been in the gym this whole time. You still busted. Like, get out of it. Man, go away. So anyway, this week we're going to be talking about why life is about to, why I believe at least that for the vast majority of people, life is going to get a little bit harder. And you know, hey, that's to me, that's just where we are at this point. There's not a lot of way around it because we have given, which is the reason why so we're going to be talking about politics just for y'all. So if you want to skip this episode because you soft, like Kobe said, go ahead and skip it. But understand, I typically like to deal in, and everybody knows me knows this, I try to deal in verifiable facts.
Facts.
Meaning facts that other people that get paid to do this kind of stuff have found out, right? Because for the vast majority of us, all we doing is pulling up somebody else's research. We'd be like, well, I researched it. No, you didn't. You pulled up somebody else's research because you don't have the funding to research it yourself. So stop lying. You do like everybody else did. You found somebody else's research and you said, I researched it. You read somebody else's. You read somebody else's paperwork. Copyright infringement. No, I'm kidding.
Yep.
So anyway, the first thing though that me and Mr. Zoe wanted to start out with is, it's something I heard from one of my former mentors a long time ago. You know, he always used to say that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And that meaning that, bars. It really is bars because it really is the truth, I think, because history, it's hard for history to repeat itself, but it's easy for somebody to convince you that this is not the same thing. Gotcha. Right. And the reason I started off with that is because, during the presidential election process, a lot of stuff was said about the mandate for leadership, or as it was called, Project 2025. Now, for those that don't know, this mandate for leadership comes out pretty much every presidential cycle, because it's a mandate for whomever is the next conservative president of the United States. And people can say, and this is the crazy thing, because we live in a world where just about anything is look upable if you know how to look it up. The problem I find is the vast majority of people don't know how to look stuff up. I wish they did, but they don't. They really just have no clue how to actually perform searches.
Well, let's be real, man. People don't want to do. It takes time to do research, man. Because if you get one piece of information, you have to verify that piece of information with other information that that have to coincide to actually make it a fact. So there's a lot of time into the research you do, and the information you take in to decipher, what is actual facts from what's been given and what's been told. So
It can be. I think if you know how to search, you can take less time.
yeah.
But that's only because you know the right questions to ask. Generally speaking, open-ended questions. Like, for an example, what I did on what we're about to get into real quick, because the current president said that he had no knowledge of the Heritage Foundation and the Mandate for Leadership, or what they were calling at the time, Project 2025. So here was my prompt when I was searching. All I said was, how much, if any, of the Mandate for Leadership have conservative presidents put into policy? That was all I searched for. But that was also because that was what I searched for. Now, what I also could have searched for was something as simple as Mandate for Leadership, Republican presidents. I probably would have gotten some similar information. But here's what I found. Either way, here's what I found.
Okay.
Because this started, for those that don't know, this started with Reagan.
That was a while back.
It was. But it started with the Republican Messiah, Ronald Reagan. Right? He was the first one to be presented with this. And it was because, unfortunately, because of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was pushing forward these progressive agendas to the degree that this was the conservative backlash, was to put out this mandate for leadership. Because for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason, every time there is a Democratic president, the Republicans act like that's going to be the last Republican president we'll ever have, because usually Democrats win with some kind of overwhelming, like, landslide type situation. But anyway, 1981.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1981,
that was a good year.
Yeah, it was all right. It was all right.
For me, because I just came here.
Yeah. I understand. You jumped off the ship and landed on
it. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, man.
So he put in place, there were over 2,000 proposals in the original mandate for leadership. 2,000 of them. 2,000 policies they wanted to implement. They wanted the next conservative president. It didn't matter that it was Reagan. They just said the next conservative president. What do you think the percentage was that he implemented in his first year in office?
Well, I know the answer because you typed it on the notes.
What would you have thought it was before I typed it on the
notes? Of those 2,000,
yep.
How many were implemented? I don't know, maybe half. I'll just say half.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have been close. I mean, it was 60%. So that means out of 2,000, what is that? 1,100 of them were implemented in the first year. So when people say, "Well, I don't even know anything about the Heritage Foundation," use a bold-faced lie.
Because it's been around for a long time.
Been around for a long time, and not only because it's been around for a long time, but if your predecessors have implemented 60% of anything, they knew about it, or people were put in place in the administration that knew about it. So whether you knew about it personally or not, you still did it. You still did what they wanted you to do. You still implemented what they wanted you to implement, even if you didn't know who they were.
Okay.
So you could, even if you wanted to make that argument that you didn't know who they were. But what I found was, and I didn't put it in the notes, what I found was that essentially every Republican president has implemented policies guided by the mandate for leadership. Trump's first term, 64% of the 334 recommendations they put forth were implemented in Donald Trump's first term.
Gotcha.
334 of them.
That was in 16?
That was in 2016. Yep.
Got it.
Now, for the most, people have actually looked at it. A lot of the stuff that are in the new Trump tax plan that people are calling the big, beautiful bill, a lot of the stuff that's in there came out of the mandate for leadership. But you don't know anything about it. That's the only thing. Like, hey, just stop lying, bro. That's all I'm saying. But we know people lie. They say men lie, women lie, numbers don't, but numbers can also be manipulated. So the numbers themselves don't lie, but you can lie about them numbers.
Yeah. So regardless, so I have a question now because I'm learning here. I'll be the first one to say I don't know everything, and I'm always learning. So, does the Democrat Party also have something in place to where they have proposals where they try to push on their side as well, like on the Republican side?
They don't have anything like the mandate for leadership, but what they do put what their current policy objectives are on the DNC, the Democrat National Convention's website. They put their stuff out front. Like, these are the things that we are planning to push for. But there's no 900 page or 1,000 page, 3,000 page mandate for leadership. Doesn't exist.
So I recall at one point in politics where they were trying to make the proposal or the mandate for leadership, whatever you want to call it. The what is the other one? Big Beautiful Bill. There's a one before that. I forgot what the name was, but the other nickname for it. But at one point they were trying to push it to make it public. Is that something they was trying to? Because like you said before, a lot of people prior to Donald Trump's first presidential run he had, a lot of people didn't know prior to about this mandate at all.
Right.
So were they trying to make it public?
It's always been public. It's always been a public document. It's always just been a book that you could just buy. I think the thing that made it gain traction in mainstream media is so many people were talking about it in social media. Because these days, a lot of stuff that ends up in the mainstream media outlets is stuff that's being discussed in social media. There are a ton of people that are now talking heads on the CNNs, the Foxes of the world that got their start as people on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube.
Gotcha.
And then moved into being on TV, but they started out online.
Got it. A lot of you know what? Shout out to a lot of the streamers out there, especially on the Republican side, man. They have been promoted from social media platforms and broadcasts to actual political positions that they may or may not have.
Oh, absolutely, man. Look,
privy to, you know,
as long as you bend the knee,
shout out to
and pledge fealty and loyalty.
All right, back on the topic. My
Above
bad.
all else, you know.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Let's talk about it. So we got this mandate that is still being pushed. It's been pushed for a while now. A lot of people, even if they didn't know about it, they know of it now. And right. that's where we're going right now. Now, me and you, prior to doing this recording, we was getting into tax brackets and going over some of the things that the was called as the Big Beautiful Bill,
right.
What it entailed. So I would like to go ahead and dive into some of these things because, to be honest with you, it was a lot of information. I downloaded the PDF myself, and I started going through and started seeing how they got rid of the not renewable energy, but like the EV, like the EV,
the green energy stuff.
Yep. Green energy. Thank you. And how they got rid of all that, but then further down, it just went deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. So if we can go with like a few points of what it actually
Yeah.
entails to help the listeners
Yeah, we got a few things.
understand as well. So
I mean,
I'm trying to understand it myself.
the first thing, and which is relevant to both you and I, not as relevant because we already did it, but it would be so like the renewable energy tax breaks or green energy tax breaks that have existed since for several years are all going to be discontinued December 31st. So if somebody was planning on buying an EV, now could that change? Sure.
Solar power, solar panels, all that, right?
Solar
That's all under the
panels,
same umbrella?
batteries, battery backups at home, all of those things, and potentially, I don't know this for sure because I have to go back and potentially it could also mean like new washing machines, new dryers, because most people don't realize that you were able to get a tax a clean
Green.
if it was Energy Star rated, you could get a tax deduction, a partial tax deduction for that for buying it, and it was I think 15% or 10%, but either way, because I took it because we got all new appliances, so of course I'm gonna take it.
Definitely take it.
Got a new refrigerator, got a new washer, new dryer. I'm gonna take it.
Check that off. Check this off.
Right. Hey. My thing is here's the deal. Before we get into this, I want to make sure you understand. If a benefit exists, take the benefit, even if because I tell people all the time, as much as because I do own a business, I'm going to take the business deductions because they exist. Do I wish they would close the loopholes? Yes. But while they're there, I'm not going to just be like, oh, I'm going to pay more in taxes just because
you want to rebel against it.
Because I'm a rebel by spending more money. Nah. But I wish they would close the loopholes. But so all the renewables and all that stuff, for the most part, there are a few caveats, and you need to go look that up if you're the listener to know where you fit in. So like in my case, I was looking at I have solar on the house, but I was looking at getting battery backup on the house because recently we had a situation. Now I could also get a generator, but generators require maintenance and some other stuff, that annual maintenance and some other stuff. So I could get a generator, could do something like that. But my thought process was if I get a battery backup, get a 15% deduction on the taxes for that battery backup. That battery backup would also has a 15-year warranty. So for the next 15 years, I have a warranty on it. I can use my solar even if the power is out because we had a situation recently where the power was off about 7 hours. And the power outage started when it was bright and sunny outside. Like no wind, no nothing. Could have used it because what happened in our case was the power outage started around 6 p.m. It's summertime. Sun didn't go down to 9. So I would have still made solar till 9 p.m. that day. And then from 9 p.m. onwards to about 1 in the morning, we would have just been on battery.
Right.
But we would have still been able to run the house. Now, we would obviously we wouldn't be drying clothes or anything like that, but we could have still run the house.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say minimum because I could still run with the inverters that are out there today. I could still run my air conditioning system, especially if you get a soft start. But this is another situation where it really, in the United States today, it is going to be incumbent on all of us to educate ourselves on what's out there. And I always say, and everybody doesn't fall into the category I fall into. I think everything is important, but I think everything has levels of importance.
That's fair.
Right. So like I wouldn't like if I don't have and I'm not planning to get solar, it should be important that the ability to get solar is there because people are weird because they'll say, well, we shouldn't subsidize solar. We subsidize oil and gas and have for 100 years. So what you're saying is we should subsidize fossil fuels, but we shouldn't subsidize green energy. But I think it's because most people don't know that we're subsidizing fossil fuels and that we always have subsidized fossil fuels. I don't think people know that. And so I think the problem you run into is I read this somewhere or saw it somewhere that when you don't know anything, everything's a conspiracy.
Gotcha.
And so people are talking about, that they're trying to push these green energy initiatives down our throat.
Agendas.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's because you don't know that they've been pushing fossil fuels for 100 years.
Yeah.
Ever since Henry Ford came out with this car, they've been pushing fossil fuels and subsidizing the mess out of fossil fuels for oil companies to go and drill in new oil fields. They've been subsidizing the mess out of oil. But because you don't know that, you just like, wow, they're subsidizing this. Well, there's reasons.
This is on topic, but in a different direction. So because of the age of information and how everybody has access to things now, do you think that is one of the factors of people? Well, I can't even say that. Never mind, because they don't even do their research. Never mind. Belay my last.
Well, but I would still say I think the vast majority of people are not like I am. In that I've always said, for those that ever watched it, I am like Sid the Science Geek. Meaning I want to know everything about everything. Mm-hmm. Well, even if I don't think it's important to know about it, I still want to know. And I find that the vast majority of people are not like that.
Got it.
To them, if it's not important, I don't care. I don't even want to know about it. And so as a result, I think most people, even though we have so much information at our fingertips, I think the vast majority of people don't want to go look it up. And I find it happen in my own life. People will, and I'm not talking about anybody in specific, but people, because they know I look up everything, they will call me to ask me before they go look it up. Like literally just call me on the phone and be like, hey, what do you know about this? And I'm like, well, how do you even know I know anything about this? I do,
bro.
But
you the elephant, bro. You the elephant, bro.
But it's because everything is important to me. Everything has levels of importance. So it might not be, and importance changes. It changes in the moment. So something might be important today, but it might not be important next year.
Gotcha.
And so that's why, so for me, everything is important. So I get it. And I appreciate the fact that people have that faith in who I am as a person, because they also know that I'm not going to intentionally tell them anything that's untrue.
Yeah, because if you didn't know something, for example, if I was to ask you a question about something and you didn't know about it, you wouldn't make up something just because you were just like, yo, I don't know. And if you really wanted to, you'll do the research and and then we'll probably get back together and compare notes with it, but nothing out of the just not grabbing stuff out of the air just to try to make it seem like you know something. You know what I mean?
Here's what else I typically do that most people don't know that I do. But now that I'm saying it in public,
and
you know that I do this.
Topic. All right, I'm listening.
So what I typically will do is, even when somebody asks me a question and I think I know the answer, I'll give you the answer, and then I will still go look it up to check myself, to make sure that answer is still accurate and relevant today. Because it may have been accurate and relevant 5 years ago, but it may not still be relevant today. And then if I find that there's new information, I'll be like, hey, find out some new information, and I'll shoot over the links.
Sounds like something you would do.
I'll shoot over the links. Like, hey, find out some new information and let me shoot this over, because I don't want to intentionally or even unintentionally really steer someone in the wrong direction, because I realize that a lot of people are basing life decisions not necessarily on the information that I'm giving them, but they're basing life decisions on the information that they have. And so I just want to make sure that they have the best information possible. So if you call me and I'm like, hey, now let me check, because this might have been true yesterday. And like, matter of fact, when we were talking about the one big beautiful bill, because you were like, well, I thought you was like, I thought it went back to the House. And I'm like, oh, it did. And they approved it today. So that's how fast information is changing in our world. It's like, this was true yesterday. And if you thought it was going to take time, nah, bruh, done. So anyway, let's talk about SNAP real quick. So SNAP is something I'm only familiar with because I used to work at social services, right? So I was not a social worker or a caseworker, but I used to work in the same building. I was doing building maintenance there and in their building. And so I got to hear all of these stories and whatnot. So what they've essentially done.
So for SNAP, for those people who don't know,
oh, yes.
SNAP is a government assistance program, correct?
It is a government assistance program. It's it used to be called Supplemental Nutrition for Needy Families, or that might be, but they're calling it SNAP. But it's essentially food stamps.
Got
For everybody that's familiar with that, it's food stamps or whatever. So what they're doing is they're raising the work requirements because in order to get SNAP, you do have to work. Like you have to have some kind of income in general to stay on SNAP. Now you can start getting SNAP when you are not working, but there are work requirements already to SNAP for those people that thought people were just like laying on their back, doing nothing, getting food assistance. There are work requirements.
Like welfare?
Like welfare. They think that too. Okay. I ain't never, let me tell you what I ain't never seen. I ain't never seen, Alan? I ain't never seen anybody pull up to social services in a nice car. You know, because the story was people were pulling up to social services in Cadillacs and whatnot. That was the story that was being fed to people, that people were pulling up in Cadillacs. I ain't never seen that. The years I worked in social services, I ain't never seen it. Now, there's always, no matter what the system is, there's always going to be somebody getting over.
Of course.
Because that's human nature. Human nature is to get over if you can.
That's why loops, man.
I mean, that's the reason Bernie Madoff existed. Because getting over is kind of the American way. It's the human condition, right? But so it raises the work requirements.
I'm sorry, I got to pause for just a cause. Yo, I'm adjusting myself in this seat. So for the listeners, if you heard something that was
anybody hear nothing?
Okay, cool. Moving on.
So they raised the age limit for those work requirements to 64.
64.
So now, if you are, it used to be if you were 64, if you were above whatever the age limit was, then they waived the work requirements. You have to worry
about the work. Okay, right. Got you.
And the other thing that they're doing is they're sending costs back to the states. Administrative costs that the federal government used to pay for, they're going to send back to the states. The problem that you have is there's no phased approach sending them back to the states. So the states are going to have a huge budget hit to their, because the states used to just pay for a portion of the administrative costs. Now they're going to be paying for all of them.
The full cost.
And the question is going to be, can they afford that? Right? To me, with anything that's been a long running program, you should have, in my view, a phased approach with sending those costs back to them. Because if they for 20 years had never had to include this in the budget, and then all of a sudden 1 year to the next they got to figure out where to find this money, that's a hard deal. And then you're just going to blame the governors because you say, well, the governor can't do it, they shouldn't be governor. Well, you didn't do it. Should you be president? They elected officials like you, right? I see the war in Ukraine still going. What happened to that? 24 hours, bruh.
Yeah.
So they're going to send some of those costs back to the states.
Got it.
They're also
that's going to affect a lot of people, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh, it's going to affect a lot of people.
Especially when you get down to the budgeting part of it with the states. I don't see that being a smooth transition, if you will, like you said.
It won't be any problem.
There's going to be what's the word I'm looking for? There's going to be a lapse, if you will, in between.
Here's going to be the other problem that people aren't even talking about. This type of legislation is going to hit poorer and more rural states harder because more of their populations are on some kind of assistance. So if you're in West Virginia, if you're in Mississippi, if you're in Alabama, you're in Louisiana, you're in Alaska, these are going to have more of an impact on your communities than they would have, say, in New York. Even though the total number of people in New York receiving benefits may be higher, per capita it isn't higher. Because you can't say, well, we got a poor state that doesn't receive assistance. Like those two statements don't even go together. And the three poorest states in the union, well, three of the poorest states in the union are West Virginia, Alaska, and Alabama, which overwhelmingly voted for the current policies. Overwhelmingly voted for it. But the South always has, for the most part, voted conservative. Whether that was when the Democrats were the conservative party or when the Republicans were the conservative party, they generally vote conservative. The only difference was when Georgia voted for Jimmy Carter, but he was from Georgia. So it made sense that they would vote for Jimmy Carter. So, but anyway, so SNAP, they're going to raise the age limits. They're going to end all federal funding to Planned Parenthood.
Well, speaking of ending federal funding, Looks like they're also going to apply that to the Planned Parenthood as well. So that's going to be rolled back. So is that going to be something that's going to be sent back to the state? Like
No, Planned
that part?
Parenthood it probably now will states pick it up maybe, but it's not. They're just ending it. They're just ending funding. They're essentially ending funding because Planned Parenthood does abortions. So that is the entire reason they're going to end funding to Planned Parenthood. They're essentially saying any clinic that performs abortions is not eligible to receive federal funding. But they're starting with Planned Parenthood.
Got it.
The issue with that is Planned Parenthood does total women's health. Abortions is just one thing they do. They do pap smears. They do mammograms. They do all kinds of stuff. And generally speaking, they're positioned in lower income communities, places where people may not have the money to go and get this stuff done. Yeah, most people don't know that Planned Parenthood does a lot of other stuff.
But see, they focus on the one thing, for example, the abortion part, and neglect everything else that it was helping people with. So that's unfortunate, man.
It is. And, and listen, I tell people all the time because clearly, my folks are.
What do you mean, my folks?
People that look like me.
Okay. All right.
They've often said that, we shouldn't want Planned Parenthood because they're positioned because they're in poor areas. A lot of times they're in communities of color, whether that's black or brown communities. A lot of times they're in communities of color. And so that they're responsible for killing more black babies than name your thing. That's what's been said, right? But I would say that availability doesn't mean anybody had to go in and do anything. Just because crack cocaine is available to me, that doesn't mean I'm going to go smoke it. But I'm sure that if I wanted to, I can walk out of my door and go 2 miles in any direction.
Any direction, yeah.
And I'm going to find somebody who knows how I can get some crack or meth, because meth is, becoming a larger problem here in this area. But, but I'm going to find somebody that can get me whatever I want to get into. Whatever I want to get into, I'm going to find. So the fact that the clinic exists is not the problem. What I have found in the researching of other people who have actually paid money for studies is that the more education you have, the less likely a place like Planned Parenthood is needed, because natural ways to avoid pregnancy, right? Whether that's contraception or whether that's timing. Now, nothing's going to be 100%. But you won't be like some people that I know that thought that, immediately after you had your period was the best time to have sex because then you couldn't get pregnant. Like that's definitely the complete opposite of what that is. That would be the worst time to go and get it in, because you're more likely to get pregnant at that point. But so let me just so people know. The other stuff that they do, Planned Parenthood does birth control.
Okay.
They do HIV testing. They do STD testing. Yes, they do abortions. They also do cancer screenings. They do other health and wellness stuff. And they overall teach you, how to avoid pregnancy in the first place.
Okay.
Or if you're trying to have a family, they teach you that as well. So it's not called Planned Parenthood because they didn't call it planned abortion. They called it Planned Parenthood, so that you weren't having children when you did not intend to. And I find that a lot of people, because, people have worked hard to get rid of sex education. Because the only thing that these days they're trying to teach in sex education is abstinence. Well, listen, one thing I can tell you is these kids ain't abstaining. Listen, they ain't even abstaining in school during the day. So why would you pretend why would people want to pretend that people are going to abstain. Like even when I was in school, people were still during the school day finding places.
Let's move on. Let's just move on.
Finding, whether it was under bleachers, at the end of hallways that didn't have classes most of the day, no matter what, people would still find places. All kinds of places. So anyway, so that's why I'm like, it's one thing, ending all funding is a bit ridiculous, but that's where people are. They have said we don't want our money to go to that.
I guess I have to do some more research to find out, and closing that out completely, because they talk about waste management and things of that nature. So if they did, or since they did cancel the Planned Parenthood, how much of that was affecting as far as budgeting for America? Like, how much does that take away? Like, is it like, what percentage is it? Like 10 before? I know it ain't a lot.
It's
probably like 2-4%, something like that. I don't know. I'm guessing that. It's gonna have to verify. So that small percentage, I don't know. I guess my personal opinion, my perspective is that the out of all the services that they did have for that program, I don't know, man. There's gonna be a lot of people out here hurting, man.
Well, it is, but that's why we say life is about to get harder. Now, here's the problem. So, for the most part, and this is why I was talking to somebody the other day. You know who they are. They used to lift weights with us from time to time. They
Okay.
So I was talking to them the other day, and I was like, the problem that I have is that what I find is that the people that want this fall into one of two camps, and they can say whatever they want to. This is just they can say that they don't, but they fall into one of two camps. Either they don't care about people at all,
mm-hmm.
or they don't think that these policies will hurt the people they care about. Because it's not like none of this information was hidden.
It was all accessible.
It was all, they were screaming it from the rooftops. This is what we're going to do. This is what's going to happen. So now all of a sudden, and this has nothing to do with this, but because
I understand.
So when they started doing the deportations, which is what they said they were going to do. Now, all of a sudden, because the farmers were hurting, maybe we just put them in concentration camps and let you rent them out for the day and put them back in the concentration camp. Sounds very Auschwitzian.
I will say that once I've started seeing those same individuals that was rooting for the bill and rooting for the president-elect at the time, rooting for it and singing and dancing. There was one lady in particular that I saw, and fast forward after the election, after the policies have been put in place to start the deportation of illegal immigrants, legal immigrants, however you want to say it.
Yep.
The same lady that was singing about the giving, praise and all that is now in tears.
Yep.
Is now distraught. Is now broken because the same things that she was singing and dancing for, that honestly, if she had a clue, I don't think she would have been doing the things and going in the direction that she was going, as far as the big picture of what these bills and what these policies actually were for.
And I think that people, this is why people need to know how to look stuff up, because none of the information was hidden. But the problem was everybody was saying, well, this is what so-and-so said. Like, no. This is what they said at a rally. This is also what they said at a rally, and they would be contradicting one another. So then it's like, well, which one do you think is true? Because they said both of these things. So which one do you think is true? And not just which one is true for the people, for the vast majority of people, and for the people that you care about. Which one of these things is going to be true? Because, none of this information was hidden. Not a singular solitary drop of it was hidden. It was all put out there, and it was all made public. So I don't know when people say that, they lied. Well, no, they didn't. They told you. Look, they
That's
told
what
you
I'm
exactly what
saying.
they were
Like
going to do.
they were very blatant. I won't say blatant, but the wording of what they were saying may have been misconstrued. However, the intent of what they were trying to do was very clear from the beginning.
From the beginning. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people still said, for whatever they're, because people,
and I'm hating because I'm not falling for the fluff. I'm looking at the facts. I'm looking at the details of what people are, or even though one person you may say it one way, however, in writing, it might be tweaked a little bit to be an advantage for other people versus me. So if you don't do the research, then how you can't say that you didn't know. I don't get that.
I find that people, they tend to, because they don't want to look anything up, they tend to believe what they already want to believe anyway.
And then they all distraught and crying and
don't be crying now.
Metaphorically crying. Not I'm not saying, actually crying, but metaphorically, just they feel like they've been bamboozled, or they feel like the wool has been pulled over their eyes or something like that. When if you were paying attention, if you was doing your own research versus following whatever the media was telling you, it was so many different angles and from each platform that one side had a view, this side had a view. Like, you got to find a balance in between to find out how it affects you and how you can maneuver through it. So when people have conversations, I have conversations with people and they telling me things and they're distraught and they broken up about things. I'm like, so how do you, maybe just me, it's like, yo, how do you not see this coming? I don't want to call people naive. I don't want to call people ignorant, because that's not my position. I'm not here to do that. However.com, there's no way, and again, this is just my personal perspective, there's no way that you did not see this outcome coming.
The only people or way I could see that you didn't see this coming is, so I was watching a news report, right? Okay. And they were talking about these communities, Spanish-speaking communities primarily is what they went into, where people didn't speak English, where the vast majority of them did not speak English, right? Okay. And so they would get, the only real news, quote unquote, that they got was what family members sent them. Because they were primarily using WhatsApp and so forth. Because truthfully, around the world, the vast majority of people are using, one of the reasons why the iPhone is so prevalent in the United States is because in the United States, we actually still use text messaging. The most of the world uses a third-party app to do their messaging with the people that they know. So whether that's WhatsApp, whether that's Signal, Telegram, whatever it is, they use one of those apps.
It's popular on Signal, yeah, it's a popular one.
Well, WhatsApp is way more popular. I wish Facebook hadn't bought it, but they did. But that's what, because even when we went to Cancun,
which one was the War Plans
Signal
app?
That was Signal.
Signal, okay,
yeah.
Bet. All right.
So when we went to Cancun the other year, was that last year or the year before last?
It's about the year before last. It's been a while.
So when we were on the bus, I just noticed that the vast majority of people that were on their phone were in WhatsApp. So everybody on the bus at least was using WhatsApp, not the text messaging app in their phone. So yes, people, I'm nosy. My eyes are going to be watching all the time. So
can't turn it off.
Can't turn it off. So, but I was paying attention because I was just like, well, I want to know. And everybody was using WhatsApp to communicate. So if that's where you are, what I found was that you're not seeing the information that I'm seeing. So you don't even know to go search the information that I'm searching for. You're just, and especially because family members said this to you, you just believe them. And unfortunately, I don't. My mindset is always, it's a lie until I prove it true.
Trust but verify. Oh, you don't even do that.
Nah, it's a lie until I prove it true. If it sounds plausible, look, people will tell me something like, well, it sounds plausible. And then as soon as they leave, I'm like, Let me use these thumbs and
Research.
see if I can find something out, because that's just where I'm at. So what we do know, though, is that with all the stuff that was in the bill, and this has been through different bipartisan groups and whatever, that it at minimum it'll add $2.8 trillion to the national deficit. At most, it's $3.3 trillion, but it'll add $2.8 trillion to the current deficit.
Okay.
So I don't know how this was supposed to make America great again.
Let me
go
take it back. So it's up to 2.8 trillion. To
no,
3.3
not up
trillion?
to 2.8 trillion was the minimum it was going to add.
Oh, okay. Got
up to 3.3 trillion.
Got it.
To the national debt.
Right now, let me see.
No, that's an additional. Yeah, go ahead, look it up.
That's what I'm saying.
I think we're
go ahead, do your
at
thing.
4 or something like that. But you can look it up. So I don't, so the thing of it is, and they raised the debt ceiling so that they don't have, all those debt ceiling issues we kept having. They raised the debt ceiling by a ton. So they won't have these debt ceiling. Yeah. So you can't shut the government down no more to get your point across.
Right.
Which here's always the thing. And this is the thing I don't think people understand. Like which sometimes to me is dumb, is if you give people additional power, you do realize that if the opposition ever gets in power, they also have that power. So it seems to me that you would want to limit powers, because the other side is sort of like in different wars, the U.S. military has not always fielded the best weapon that they had in the arsenal for fear that the enemy could pick up that weapon off of a dead soldier or Marine and then recreate that weapon and use it against you.
Got it.
But yet I find the political process, people will give people powers that they don't want the other side to have. But it's like, but you can't stop them from having it because you gave it to the position. You didn't give it to the party, you gave it to the position. But anyway, so 2.8 trillion and 3.3 trillion in debt. And then let's talk about this no tax on tips, overtime pay, and car loan interest thing. Because, that was a big deal.
Yeah, so it looks like it's about 37 trillion at the moment, roughly, for the debt itself. So 3.3, what's that, right?
What's an additional $3 trillion?
It's light work.
I couldn't spend that in 12 lifetimes. But what's an additional? What's an additional 3 trillion? When you got 40 trillion, what's an additional 3? That's pennies.
Hole,
peasants. These peasants.
35 plus in the hole, man. What's 3 more?
Man, that's crazy.
We'll get through it.
Yeah, hey, we're gonna have to.
So I did put the note in regards to family will get up to.
Yeah, we'll go back to it because we got. That's why.
Yeah.
I wasn't skipping it. I was just jumping down to the no tax on overtimes.
All right, let's do it. So I did see that portion, but again, the details, the small print on that was what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, and they put it out there. They buried it.
Yeah.
So as far as the tax on tips, it's tips up to $25,000. And now I got to go back and look it up. So for those of you that are listening, I'm telling you in advance, I got to go back and look it up. I was reading something where it was saying that it had to become as a separate form. So if it was tips that were included on your W-2, that wasn't included. It had to come on some separate form that you would get if you were a tip worker.
I'm looking it up now as we speak as well. See if I can get some more details on it.
So form 4070 is what you would use, but I don't remember what you would get from. Oh no, it's on there. So I that's why I said I gotta look it up. But it's only on your first $25,000 in tips.
That is true. Up to $25,000, correct?
And guess what else? It goes away in 2028. So it ain't like it's permanent. It goes away 3 years from now. 2028, it goes away.
So they allow you to stack your bread up,
Yeah,
and
for
then
3 years. You get 3 years,
hopefully,
and then we're going to get rid of
yeah,
that junk.
yeah. So stack your bread up, people. If you're listening, you got about 3 years in the making for that. So hopefully you're able to take up to $25,000 in tips or whatever you're getting. Does that apply to overtime as well, or overtime is
So
more?
overtime is up to $12,500 in overtime. After that, you get taxed on it. Now, here's the thing, and this is what I don't think people understand.
So
Tips is one thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So all this has a limit to it, though. Even if you do up to that amount, so if you go above that, it decreases by 100 for every thousand in the gross that you do as far as a tip in overtime. Okay, all right. I'm just reading. Go ahead. I'm listening. So basically, after you reach that mark, it looks like the tax break decreases by 100 for every 1,000 of modified adjusted gross income above. Um, oh no, never mind. That says 300,000. Married jointly is filing jointly is 300,000, and then for all other filers is 150,000 above that. So never mind. That's
So if you somebody who a bulk of your income comes from overtime,
yeah,
once you hit that number, you don't get the deduction.
right.
Not that you don't get the deduction up to that number, you don't get the deduction at all.
Got you.
From what I was reading. Now, who knows? More information is going to come out about this stuff. But so here's the thing.
I'm listening.
And this is what I don't think people are really understanding. Tips is one thing. Overtime, you have to file that on your taxes. So you're going to get taxed up front. And then you got to file to get that money back on the back end. So I think people are like, oh, yeah, no taxes on overtime. Yeah, sure. Once you file your taxes. But
Yeah,
you
so
go
you get it on the back end. You're not gonna get it in the beginning
at all. So you're not going to have that money all year. They still going to tax the dog mess out of you. I was about to say something else. I almost messed up.
It's okay. Good job.
They're gonna tax you because you already know how you get taxed on overtime.
Overtime is crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. And then they're gonna say you can file it.
Okay, so exactly. So the overtime taxation process has not changed.
Nope.
However, okay, so they still going to, like you said, tax the dog out of dog mess out.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. They still.
And you have to file to get a portion of that back.
Yes. Yeah, you got to file. You got to file to get that back. Now, of course, like I said, as we go forward and people start really digging into the documents, because like I said, this bill was 900 pages, so people are going to. People are going to get more and more information as we get closer to it.
Go along, yeah.
And then people will see what the IRS has gotten. But and also, guess what it doesn't also do? It doesn't remove any state or local taxes on that overtime. It only removes the federal tax. So you still gonna get taxed by the state, and you still gonna get taxed by your local municipality if you get taxed that way. So it didn't remove. It only removed the federal portion, and it didn't remove FICA or Medicare. It only removed the actual federal income tax portion. So you still gonna get buzzed in the head by FICA. You still gonna get buzzed in the head by Medicare, and you still gonna get buzzed in the head by the state.
You can get a portion of it back.
Yeah, April 15th or January if you like me, and you file your taxes as soon as you can. But you're gonna get it back next year. Things
we're gonna do with that.
So all the money you make in 2026, you're gonna get that back in 2027. All the money you make in 2027, you'll get that back in 2028. All the money you make in 2028, you can get back in 2029, and then it ends.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think people were thinking this thing was going to be permanent. Nah, they didn't make it permanent. That's going to go away. 3 years. You got 3 years to use it.
There's a whole bunch of other things that's permanent though.
Now, right. Now I'm sure that they will probably
try to extend it. Maybe
they're probably going to try to extend it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And like you said, and again, if you make over 150,000, this don't count unless you marry filing jointly. Then you can make 300,000 for the overtime portion.
Got it.
But but again, so if you make 148,000, you can do up to 12,500. You do 150, that's the income limit.
So I do have something up here that I don't know. Like, well, we talked about tips, we talked about overtime, but I also saw something about car loan interest as well, but I wasn't able to pull up anything on
I did
that
find something on it.
specifically.
Yeah, it was I put it on there. You have to make less than $100,000 a year, and you
Okay, I
can
see it now.
deduct up to
I got you.
10,000 in that auto loan interest. But again, this is at the end of the year, so I don't want people to think that they're not gonna feel it until the following year, and they got to remember to claim it. It's not so none of this stuff is automatic. That's the other part of the problem. None of this is automatic.
Well,
You
that's
got to
always
remember
how
to
it's
claim
been.
it,
Yeah,
or
that's
you just gonna end
always
up
how it's
paying it.
been.
Right?
Yeah,
Always. I tell people all the
yeah,
time, like, hey,
so
you got to manage your own tax situation in the U.S. It ain't like other countries where they be like, oh, okay, we want to confirm that this is right. Here's what your refund should be. Nah, you got to advocate for yourself here.
you got to fight for every penny
Every
of
nickel
that
and every
time.
dime. Every
Yep.
nickel and every dime. So
Yep.
it's one of those things, man. It's just, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, if you make over $100,000 a year, I'm sure that's probably adjusted gross income, but I got to look.
Gotcha.
Then you get up to $10,000 in auto loan interest that you can deduct, which is going to be good. I'm not going to pretend that that's not going to be that for those that don't make $100,000 a year, which is the vast majority of people. That will be a good program. The question is, how much auto loan interest did you pay last year on the car that you got? Because that's what the number is going to be. Because if you think about it, for the vast majority of people, if you have a $100,000 car and you had 10% interest, that's the only way you're going to deduct that full amount. Or you got a real cheap car and you're paying 20 or 30% interest, but you have to be paying 10% interest on a $100,000 car to deduct $10,000 in interest. So I don't want people to think that you can deduct 10,000. No. You can deduct whatever you paid in interest. So if that was 3,000, it was 3,000. If it was 2,000, it was 2,000. If it was $100, well, you can deduct $100. So what it's going to end up doing for some is going to change what your adjusted gross income was, and might move you down a bracket to
Gotcha.
where you overpaid.
So you can get a little bit back.
So you can get a little bit
more
back. Here's what I have found. And this, the thing that we don't know yet, because a lot of the time, a lot of these deductions that are out there still don't beat the standard deduction. So if they're not something that you can take in addition to the standard deduction, like the solar, I can take in addition to the standard deduction. So I do the standard deduction and then add the solar credits on top of it. We don't know that these are going to work that way. So for an example, the car interest one, if you are already, if your itemized doesn't go over that standard deduction, you still just taking the standard deduction anyway, which means you never actually got access to that. But because we haven't done taxes for that year yet, don't know. We'd have to look at the IRS and see if it's going to be like the solar credits were, or the renewable energy credits were, where you could take that in on top of the standard deduction, or whether it's going to be something different. That's what we got to find out. Because I tell people all the time, like because I keep like some of these deductions, like the medical deductions and whatnot that you can take.
Yeah.
If you don't go above a percentage of your income, it don't even matter that you put them on there. You may as well leave them off. May as well not even do that work, because you can't deduct them a lot of the time if it doesn't go above a certain percentage of your adjusted gross income. But people don't know that and you definitely don't know it if you're not doing your taxes on yourself. So it just depends. Depends on what people are doing, man. So I just pulled up my interest statement. So
For your
far
vehicle.
for my vehicle. Yep.
Got it.
So far this year. Now we're in July.
Mm-hmm.
Which means my interest has already been charged for July, because my payment's on the 1st. I have paid $1,915 in interest. So that means for the year, I will probably pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,600 to $4,000 in interest. That is what I would be able to deduct. Assuming I can deduct it on top of my income, I know what my income is. It ain't gonna move my bracket. So I'm not gonna really get $4,000.
Right.
I'm gonna get
a portion.
I'm gonna get, it's gonna, and again, this doesn't do anything for your state taxes, because I don't know about anybody else, but my state taxes are much harder to deduct to have deductions on than the federal taxes are.
Itemized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's much more difficult because I mean I will add a ton of stuff and it'll move the state by $10.
State's like, nah, bro.
Nah, bro, won't
Nah,
even do that
bro.
over here, bro.
All those shenanigans you
Yeah,
got over
right?
there. Don't bring it over here.
At all. So, but like I said, I do think that would be a good program for people. Now, I don't know when that ends, if it ends like the tips or whatever. I didn't look to see if it actually ends in 2028. But I think that being able to deduct the interest is probably going to be a good thing for the vast majority of people. I just don't want people to think that it's a better thing than it is.
Right.
Because
it's all in the detail though when it comes to that, because when you first hear it, that's that fish head sizzling, and then it gets close to you, then you start breaking it down. Well, you know what I mean by that. For those who don't understand what that means, is don't get caught up on the sizzle of the how do you break that down, Alan? Help me out.
Oh, they always sell you the sizzle. They don't tell you about the steak.
Got it.
They don't. I mean, you could use a fish head too, but you know they selling. It's just like when the restaurant brings you a fajita out or whatever, and you get all the going on the plate. Now you want to eat it, but you don't. You know they put cyanide on it though.
Cyanide is crazy. Moving on.
Right. So okay.
Yeah,
so
man.
you were talking about the family would get huh?
Don't get caught up in the sizzle.
No, you can't. These days you can't, because man, look,
Yeah.
these people will lie to
sizzle,
you.
bro. There's a lot of sizzle out here.
They will
bro.
tell you exactly what they want you to hear, but not give you all the information. So, you said family will get up to $10,000 additional take home pay.
Yeah, but you asked the question in which tax bracket, and I didn't see. I was trying to get more information on that part. Even the workers, it said that they'll see an increase of wages up to $7,200.
Right.
But again, I don't know the tax bracket. Couldn't find a chart to help me break that down to understand it better. So I'll have to do some further research in that, and then once I get some information for the listeners, man, I'll let you know.
Well, for the listeners, here's what we know.
All right, here we go. What we got?
Here's what we do know. So we're already in the tax plan. Like, the percentages aren't going to change. What they did was they took the current, because we're on the Trump tax plan now. We're already on it.
Mm-hmm.
So the percentages aren't going to change. The only thing that's going to change are the numbers that relate to those percentages. So how much you make relative to the percentage bracket that you're in. So there's 7 brackets. That's what we know. Let me give everybody the 7 brackets. There's 10%, and also, for people to understand, taxes are difficult because we have a marginal tax rate, right? And what that means is different portions of your income are charged a different tax rate.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. So we have a 10% tax rate. If you're a single person, that the portion of your income that is in that 10% tax rate is $0 to $11,600. So from $0 to $11,600, you are charged a 10% tax rate. If you're married, it's $0 to $23,200. Now, these numbers generally go up every year anyway to keep up with inflation, right? Then you have the 12% tax rate. That is for every dollar above $11,600, so $11,601 to $47,150. If you're married, it's $23,201 and $94,300. So that's the current tax rate. And the reason it's marginal, I did the numbers. Matter of fact, let me do the numbers on my own salary, so I can tell you what that marginal tax rate would end up being if it was me.
So while you pulling that up, you're telling me that the first, was it 10? Or was it 20?
First 10,000.
Yep. First 10,000, I get taxed 10%, right? And then any dollars above that, I get taxed again.
You get taxed. You get taxed separately.
Separately, okay.
So it's a graduated
separately,
thing. Yeah, I know. So here's what my effective federal tax rate. Jeez. My effective federal tax rate is 12.68%. Right? So when we look at the tax, when we look at the thing, which everybody, you can go and pull up. You can go pull up your own situation, right? When you look at it, my tax rate is 12.68% under federal taxes. Now my overall tax rate,
You doing single?
I'm doing well. I did single, yeah, because it didn't give me the option to do. Oh, let me change that. Married. It went down.
I was clear.
Got to be married. So now now, it didn't go down much. Now it's 7.47% because I'm married.
Got it.
So, but that's just the federal tax rate. My overall federal, FICA, state, and local for where I live, because there is no local tax where we live. There is state though. Is 19.4%. Because again, you're not avoiding FICA.
Right.
FICA gonna get theirs.
You live in the state,
and you're not avoiding Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
Up to a certain amount. Once you go above a certain amount, you don't get taxed after that. But 19.4% is my current federal tax rate.
That's all together with the other
of my taxable income.
Right. Got it. Taxable income. I like that.
Taxable income. So that means my income is really spread across 3 brackets. It's spread across the 10%, the 12%, and the 22%. Because 10% again, if you're married filing jointly, 0 to 23,200. 12%, 23,201 to 94,300. 22%, 94,301 to 201,005 to 201,050. Right? 24% would be 200,000 to 383,000. I'm gonna stop giving a number after because it's getting big.
Yeah. It's getting
but
crazy.
so that's what I mean when we say graduated. So overall, while you would say somebody should be maybe at the 24 or the 32% tax rate, they're really not, because their income is, the lower their income is, the lower the tax burden, supposedly. The only problem with that is, generally speaking, for people that are in the 10 and 12% tax brackets, they're not buying solar, so they can't deduct solar. They can't decrease their overall tax burden because they don't have the income to buy the things that they could use to decrease their overall tax burden. Because they weren't buying an EV, unless they bought it used, because EVs, generally speaking, cost more than, not a little bit more than regular cars. Right. I mean, at the time, a couple of years ago when I bought my car, it was vastly overpriced. Today, that the same car is starts at like $44,000. But you could also buy any other small SUV starting in the 20s. Mm-hmm. You might not have the technology and everything else, but you could buy the same vehicle.
Basic package, yeah.
Yeah, for starting in like 26, 27. Now it's going to be stripped down. I'm just telling you. But you could certainly, once you get in the 30s, you could certainly buy the same vehicle.
It ain't going to have CarPlay.
So anyway, let me give you the other brackets, because I gave it 24. 32% is 383 to 487, or if you're single, 191 to 243. 35% bracket is 243 to 609, or 487 to 731 if you're married. And then single person, 609 to a married person, 731, you get in your 37% tax bracket. But again, these brackets are fake. And the reason I say they're fake is because...
Wait a minute. I'll listen. Go ahead.
Because you're not taxed completely at that bracket. It's just the portion of income in the bracket that's taxed at that bracket. So your overall tax outlay is always going to be less than what the number shows. So, and as a percentage of your income, because if you look at it, the top tax rate doesn't even come into effect until you get over $600,000 or 731 if you're married filing jointly, which means so if you're at $1 million, sure, the portion from 731 is charged at 37%. But all the way up to $730,000, you're not paying 37% taxes at all. Just like again, my overall tax rate is less than it should be. Like when I say less than it should be, less than the number says it should be.
Right.
Because of how the marginal tax rate breaks down. So my effective tax rate is 7.47%. The marginal tax rate would be 12% for me. So anyway, that's why I was asking the question when they say families will get an extra $10,000 in what tax bracket?
For what tax bracket?
What tax bracket are we talking about?
That is a great question, man. I don't know, man.
Because what we do know now, we gotta what we have to look at, and we gotta find the numbers at some point, is how much more did they expand the number for the 10% and 12% tax brackets? Like how much more of your income is now in there? Because if you're somebody that or did they shrink them? So we have to find out what the actual number is for those tax brackets, so that we can see what that actually looks like. And so they make it difficult. I mean, like I said, you can put in a calculator. The problem is you can't put in a calculator for next year. Not yet. So maybe we'll come back to it. We'll revisit it in a part 2 next year, and I'll tell you what that number changed to, since I got the number.
Gotcha. Well, for those who are listening, I mean, I definitely would see this as a good talking point. Good conversational piece, just going back and forth with information and trying to figure out some things as we go into the new year with these new changes that we got already, and that's what's forthcoming. So I challenge the listeners, man, if y'all listening and y'all interested in such, man, I want to have a conversation. What information that you're coming up with, of course, it will be fact checked, because we don't take people's words. We don't take people's words for it. So don't get offended if you get fact checked. It's just a part of what we do, because information, it has to be
fact check,
homie.
To be
filtered. It has to be filtered, man. To understand what's really going on out here versus what people want going on. So shout out to y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all.
Hey, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy if we just rolled up on people like fact check, homie.
You will get fact checked, bro. But I think we should close out, man. That's a lot of information. It's probably I don't know. I would say it's a lot, but I think that is important, though. Yeah, it's a lot, man. But if we don't talk about it, and have conversations about it, how are we to know if we don't put ourselves out there to get some better understanding? So,
that's true. Hey, education is elevation, man.
Yeah, for sure. So I appreciate all the listeners for listening, man. If anything, if you take anything away from this, man, just want to encourage people out there to understand what's going on with your situation and how these changes in the law and in taxes affect you directly, and figure out how to maneuver and how to hopefully become, I would say, what's the word for it? Prosperous, but it is what it is, man. That's all I got.
Hey, I would just say, listen, figure out some ways for you to become self-sufficient with some things, especially because, we know that you won't see it for probably 90 days or so. But if farmers are having issues because of new situations that are going on, that's going to get passed on. That cost is
one way or another.
One way or another. Capitalism is always going to pass on the cost to the end consumer. Always. Businesses ain't going to eat it most of the time. Most of the time, businesses are not going to eat that cost. So understand that if you have the ability, learn how to grow something. Learn how to grow something that you like to eat, whether that's tomatoes, jalapenos, peppers. Just learn how to grow something, because if you develop a skill, the one thing that nobody can take away from you is the skills that you develop.
Yeah.
Right? You may not have enough land to grow a bunch of food, but you need to you need to learn how to do it, for sure. Because you can get you a couple pots and at least get you some good jalapenos out of it.
It might be cost effective for you in the future, especially with the way it's looking.
Ain't even no mic. Every time I go to the grocery store, I'm appalled once again. I thought these egg prices were supposed to go down, bro. What happened? What happened?
Well, they did. They went up and they came down. Everybody's like, "Ooh, they came down," but they
came down to the exact same price they were before they went up.
Yeah.
That's how sales go, though. That's how they get you. Be like, oh, it's $11. We're gonna put it back to 10 now, though.
Right.
That's why when people were saying,
thank y'all for listening, man. I appreciate you, Ryan Bird, Brian Bishop, Tiffany. Definitely looking forward to all of you that I mentioned to get on this podcast and have a great conversation. Even for those ones who, don't want to be on a podcast, your topics and conversation is definitely still appreciated. So thank y'all for listening. Thank you for your input. Thank you for everything. And the music's gone off, so I'm gonna quit. I'm out. Bye.
All right, man. Hey, we'll see y'all next week.
All right, man. See y'all later. Yeah.
Recording stopped.
Oh, at least it lets you know it stopped.